Chapter 3. The Human Form is for Realizing the Lord. Saints draw our attention to the state of affairs prevailing in the world. They point out how people, forgetting the Lord, are engrossed in various kinds of actions. They are oblivious to the existence of God. They have no time to think of Him. They are completely immersed in the pleasures of the senses. Eat, drink, and be merry is their watchword. The feeling, sweet is this world, who has witnessed the next, keeps them away from reality. They even forget that there is such a thing as death. They ignore the fact that one who is born must die. They see their companions leave, one by one, never to return. They even go to the cremations or burials of their near and dear ones, but they imagine that death is for others, while they themselves are immune to it. They never consider that the day is not far off when the same inexorable fate will overtake them. The axiom that those who live in sweetness die in bitterness is completely lost to them. All saints warn us that death lies in wait for all, and no one can escape it. Everyone must die and face the Lord of Judgment. Hardly is one rid of one body when another stands ready to entomb the soul. Like prisoners, we are ever in handcuffs. This world is a mountain, and our deeds are shouts that are echoed back at us. If people would only realize their true condition, they would feel genuine anxiety. They would be unhappy about their lot and would try to remedy it. The human form is not bestowed upon us for the enjoyment of sense pleasures, but for realizing the Lord and merging our soul in Him. Accordingly, the human form should be utilized for the worship of the Lord. We have been separated from Him for a long time. The 4 ages have orbited numberless times around their axis, and we have continued to be earthly beings undergoing woe and misery, pain and suffering, agony and anxiety. Our soul is a drop of the ocean of the Lord, but the mind holds it under its sway, and it has to suffer the consequences of the actions that it performs in this condition. Rich and poor, king and beggar, man and woman, all are kept busy settling the accounts of their actions. Wherever one is born, one suffers to some extent. Saints liken this world to a vast ocean whose shores are invisible, whose depth has never been sounded, where dangerous currents and whirlpools abound, where fierce storms rage and toss the waves about in fury. On such a dangerous ocean, we move about in a frail and leaky boat, without sails, oars, or rudder, and the consequences of such a situation can well be imagined. Down we go with the waves, and we are lost in the vast expanse of water. The ocean of life has an infinitely complex pattern. It contains myriad different forms of living beings. Yet never have we tried to find a boatman who can ferry us across this ocean. We remain bound by the desires and dictates of the mind. We have made friends with this insidious enemy, and as a result, we cannot but suffer. Think for a moment of the fate of the animals that we slaughter in the millions for our food. And yet, a doctor's injection needle is enough to frighten us, to make us tremble when we see it. It does not occur to us that if because of our karmas we were born as birds or animals, it would not be pleasant to be beheaded. Leaving out of consideration the lower species, even human beings, the darlings of the universe, the top of the creation, made in the image of God, fare no better. Their cup of misery is apt to be ever full. If they have children, they may be made miserable by them. If they do not have children, they long to have them. Wealth and poverty both lead, in many cases, to torment and torture. Honor and glory may end in dust and dishonor. When carefully considered, the world in which we live is indeed intolerable. It contains numberless widows and orphans. Floods and famines bring distress to many. Disease and disorder continually harass humanity. Pain and pleasure are inseparable parts of the pattern of human existence. The pairs of opposites are its very breath. Joy is succeeded by sorrow, pleasure by pain, riches by poverty, health by disease, honor by shame. So long as mortal beings do not transcend this world, they have no chance whatever of experiencing eternal bliss. The soul is entombed in this body, and until it awakens and rises above the physical form, must continue to experience what this veritable grave has to offer: a few moments of pleasure and a never-ending chain of suffering. Our eyes are bandaged. We see the bait, but not the anguish of the snare. As long as a wife is separated from her husband, she can never feel truly happy. You may give her wealth and possessions, name and fame, power and authority, but nothing will be of any help. She will still yearn for her husband and his love. She will always miss him. The condition of our soul is the same. Her inclination is toward her Lord, and unless she transcends the body and the mind and joins her source, she can never enjoy the everlasting sunshine. In this human form, we are settling the accounts of both the good and bad deeds that we did in the past. What we sow now, we shall reap hereafter. Neither good nor bad deeds release us from the ever-turning wheel of birth and rebirth. If we do good deeds, we will be born as kings and rulers with power over vast dominions. We may even stay for a short or a long period of time in the heavens. Our iron chains may be replaced with gold ones, but we will still be prisoners in this vast prison house all the same. On the other hand, if we do bad deeds, the fires of hell keep ever ready to consume us. This world of sunshine and darkness can be crossed only by taking refuge in the company of the saints and carrying out their directions with love, faith, and devotion. It is only when we give up the frail boat of the mind and step onto the seaworthy ship of the living Master that we can safely reach the shore of light, love, and wisdom. Whoever would sit with God, let him sit in the company of the saints. If you are separated from the company of the saints, you are in a sorry state, since you then are only a part without the whole. All of our association with the world is because of this body. At the time of our departure, even this will be left behind. If there is one thing that will accompany us beyond and be with us hereafter, it is our devotion to the Lord, our contact with the divine melody that emanates from Him and resounds in all human beings at the eye center. This is the only sustenance one can have, the only staff one can depend upon, the only raiment one can retain, the only wealth one can accumulate, the only good deed one can preserve for all time. How extraordinary it is! We toil day and night in order to own things that cannot possibly be ours. What we run after until we are exhausted is only a shadow. Parents, husbands, wives, children, friends, wealth, and possessions all fade away, even before the earthly scene is closed. They are lost forever with our last breath, yet all throughout our life we live and toil for them. We remain beasts of burden. We gather nothing that can be truly ours, both here and beyond. Our soul is in a state of deep slumber. It has forgotten its great past, its innate glory, its oneness with the Lord. It must be awakened and taken back to its home. This is its real destiny, and it must work to achieve it. The entire process of evolution consists in raising the soul to the top of creation by means of the various steps of the ladder of the word or Nam. It ascends to the top only when it comes within the orbit of the audible life stream, the Word of God. This can be accomplished only when the soul is guided by a living master. The living master and the Word are the two essential prerequisites that are needed to release the soul from the world of tragedy and tears and enable it to enter the world of everlasting bliss and joy. Malanarum writes, "Seeking is the cornerstone of felicity. Fixing the heart on the goal ensures its attainment." After every human life, we are judged with exact justice as to the manner in which we have lived our lives, the way we have conducted ourselves, and the progress we have made toward God. If our soul has been cleansed of its dirty wrappings, if it has awakened to God and has slept to the world, if its love for the beloved has been one-pointed, exclusive, and ceaseless, it cannot but be accepted in the great mansion of the Lord. If, on the other hand, it has remained steeped in the love of sense pleasures, has remained dyed in the hue of the world, and has turned a deaf ear toward God, if it has fed the illusion and has starved the soul, it can only keep endlessly moving through the cycle of birth and death. Like a treasurer who tests every coin that is brought to him and puts only the genuine ones into the treasury, the Lord receives only pure souls into his presence. Therefore, we must not forget our way or our destination. We must not be overwhelmed by the means, but should always keep in view the end, our haven of light, life, and power. The human form is an invaluable gift. We should avail ourselves of it for the purpose for which it is granted to us. Spouse and children, food and drink, we have had in every life. The uniqueness of the human form consists in its ability to realize God, as long as it is activated by life. Toward this end, we must bend all our energies. This is our real work. The rest is all to no purpose. It is like forced labor, where we toil the whole day, work to the point of exhaustion, and yet return home empty-handed. Our rituals and ceremonies, our penances and fasting, our holy baths and pilgrimages, our alms and charities keep us tied down to the wheel of 84 and are utterly unable to show us the way out. Footnote: Wheel of 84 refers to 8,400,000 life forms into which a soul may have to incarnate before assuming a human form. The cycle of transmigration. End footnote. Every age has its own spirit. The particular driving urge, the characteristic feature, the inward compulsion must change from age to age, and to this changing pattern we must adapt. Truth is infinite and eternal, but the human mind is finite. In each age, we have to discover it anew. We have to look at it from a new angle, since our own vision is constrained by the limitations of space and time. The world began with Satyug, the Golden Age. It was an age when the span of human life was very long. People's attention was not scattered. We enjoyed robust physiques and sound health. Only a little effort was required to produce concentration of mind. The dominant force in the world was truth, and it was not difficult to preach or practice it. Satyug was succeeded by Tretayug, the Silver Age. Deterioration had set in. The life force lost its purity. The span of life shortened. Artificial methods had to be adopted in order to purify the environment. Sacrificial fires and rites came into vogue. In Dwaparayug, the Copper Age, the human lifespan was reduced still further. The complicated procedures of the fourfold worship were invented for achieving liberation. Footnote: the 4 yogas, Karma Yoga, the path of action, Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, and Raja Yoga, the path of mind and body control. End footnote. Hatha Yoga acquired prominence. Now we are passing through Kali Yuga, the 4th age on this planet. It is the Iron Age. Our span of life has become pitifully short. If someone lives for 80 or 90 years, he is counted lucky. Our attention has become hopelessly scattered, and it is difficult to concentrate the mind. Our desires have become materialistic. It is the world of the senses that now occupies all our thoughts. We have to work very hard in order to earn our living. Standards of health have deteriorated. It is a fortunate person who can sit in the satsang for 1 hour without shifting his posture. It is not easy to keep one's backbone straight even for a short period of time. How can the spiritual practices of earlier ages be carried on today? The saints graciously reveal to us the only method that we can use successfully today, the practice of listening to the Shabad. Communion with the divine melody is the only spiritual discipline that we can successfully acquire. The saints call it the Dharma of this age. Footnote: Dharma, literally that which is held fast, law, observance, religion, duty, moral code. End footnote. In Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, it is devotion to the divine melody, the unstruck music, the audible life stream that can lead to salvation, end the cycle of birth and death, and merge the drop in the ocean and make it ocean. In this age, we have to love the Lord for love's sake, not for the fulfillment of a legion of our wishes and desires. The Lord is the giver. He never tires of giving. It is we who tire of receiving. For the consummation of our desires, we must be born again, and thus continue to tread the wheel. Rabia Basri, a great Muslim saint, says, "O God, if I worship Thee for fear of hell, burn me in hell. And if I worship Thee in hope of paradise, exclude me from paradise. But if I worship Thee for Thine own sake, grudge me not Thine everlasting beauty." Some people worship serpents, not because they bear any love for them in their hearts, but because they fear their venom, because they wish to escape their wrath. We should not love the Lord for fear of losing our children, for fear of setbacks in business, or for fear of dishonor or ignominy. This is a very inferior method of devotion. The Lord is not so cruel as to heap upon us these calamities because we do not worship Him. He is continually bestowing His grace, whether we are conscious of it or not. We have to love Him exclusively and with steadfastness, for it is this single-minded devotion that will release us from the prison house where we have remained as captives for unknown ages. It is the Word that created the world, the upper realms, and the underworlds. It is this Word that resounds in all human beings and is the motive force behind all expression and manifestation. This immanent power is the heritage of all, irrespective of social status, creed, or color. The lovers of the Lord have spoken of this immanence in many different languages and in different words. The scriptures of many different ages and climes describe this same immanent power and enjoin us to contact it in the center behind the two eyes. Differences arise when we forget the reality and get lost in the wilderness of verbiage. Disagreements stem from names. When one proceeds to the reality, peace ensues. Whoever contacts this divine music is released from the unbreakable net of this world. This is the only means of redemption. It is the only way of escape from the veil of sorrow. No second way exists. It behooves us, therefore, to use the rare opportunity granted to us to transcend matter and mind and merge in the divine. If we fail to accomplish this, we are no better than sheep that run into a burning sheep pen, even when people try to rescue them from it. We are like flies that return again and again to filth and shun the fragrance of the flowers. The saints incarnate into the world in order to take us back to our true home. Their judgment is sound. They are as radiant as a brilliant flame, as immaculate as heaven, and as lofty as the stars. Instead of being grateful to them, how shameful it is that we often torture them. We crucify them, we flay them alive, yet, love-intoxicated, they bear our harsh treatment. Jesus Christ said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." So also did Prophet Muhammad say, "Guide my people, verily they know not." It is time, therefore, that we give up indolence and sloth. No one knows when death will overtake him, and all his planning will come to an end. We should therefore devote time daily to our meditation. Whether the mind likes it or not, we must do our duty and sit for the requisite time. Practice makes a person perfect, and this applies to meditation as it does to other pursuits. You who talk of tomorrow should realize that with every day that passes, the evil tree grows more vigorous, while he whose duty it is to dig it up by the roots is getting old and feeble. We have to forget the world. Saints do not advocate giving up hearth and home and retiring to the seclusion of caves or forests. They enjoin us to live in the world, do our duty by it, and yet not become tainted. We must constantly miss the Lord and devote ourselves to Him. The saints tell us that this world is an inn where we all assemble for the night, but with the daybreak go our diverse ways. This is an alien land in which we all are strangers. We must never lose sight of our homeland and should endeavor to get there after our short stay here. The world is only a temporary abode. We have to leave it sooner or later. Why then be concerned all the time in accumulating things that must remain behind? Hazur Maharaji, Maharaj Sawan Singh, used to say that we should dwell in this world as does a newly wedded girl living in her parents' house. She serves her parents, cares for her brothers and sisters, plays with her companions, and yet keeps the memory of her husband ever in her heart. The saints advise the devotee to digest the Lord's grace, assimilate it so thoroughly that not a hint of what we receive can be known outside. The more we preserve this wealth, in greater measure does it flow from Him. It should not be dissipated by displaying miraculous powers and thereby earning short-lived name and fame. If one earns a rupee a day and spends it all, how can one ever have a bank account? If one saves what he earns, it is only a matter of time before his bank balance will increase in size. The Lord's grace is an elixir that will immortalize the soul, provided it is not allowed to flow out. It is a rare gem that must be kept in a locked treasure chest. The devotee who realizes its true worth is the one who will succeed in ascending to the source from where it is flowing down. Others are like the shepherd, who, finding a shiny stone, a diamond, merely ties it round the neck of his favorite sheep. Beware of the mind, for it is the mind that stands as a veil between us and the Lord. It is the mind that gives us outgoing and worldly tendencies. It is the mind that does not let us go within. Ego is its sharpest weapon, and unless this is blunted, the mind, which is our foe, does not become a friend, nor does it become still. The company of the saints is the magic which brings this change about. It is only then that we give up our attachment to wealth and possessions, forget the distinction between high and low, avoid sense pleasures, and concentrate in the third eye, where we hear the voice of God that continuously beckons us home. It is then that the roving mind is stilled and reaches its home in Triquity. It then releases its hold on the soul, which discovers for the first time that she is different from the mind and the body, and is of the essence of the Lord. She wonders how she could have been so confused as to forget her origin. Once she realizes that she is the spark of the flame, she rushes forward, and joining it, becomes the flame. Thus is our destiny fulfilled.